those of you watching on YouTube, please subscribe to the channel, like the video, drop your comments down below, share your video with anyone else that you think might be interested. Obviously, we've got a 2-week international break now, so they've got some time to catch up on old episodes. So just share them with anyone that you think's an avid Man United or Arsenal fan, or even just a football fan in general. And for those of you listening on Spotify, Apple, or any of the other podcasting platforms, please follow, give us a 5-star review. All that stuff helps us with the growth of the podcast. Let's get into the Arsenal segment then. Oh God, this might be long as well.
Yeah.
Arsenal won, Brighton won. First half was decent. I feel like you guys had a quick start, like kind of a la Arsenal last season. Saka had, was doing some good things and twisting up the left back. What's his name again? The young Brighton lad. I've forgotten his name. Who's playing left back? He had a really good start, and then you open the scoring. I feel like it was a decent goal from Havertz, chipping the goalie. And it continues building his confidence, so that's really good. The only kind of blotch on it was, I guess, about midway through the first half, Brighton started coming back into it a bit, and I feel like you guys got a bit, you lost a bit of your shape, got a little bit ragged. Rice comes in with the late lunge and gets a yellow card, which I feel like pretty fair. I don't think anything more than that. Second half starts, you kind of hit the same stride, and then, the big incident of the game happens. Veltman gets a free kick in the corner of the Brighton half, rolls the ball out. As the ball's still rolling, Declan Rice flicks out his leg and touches the ball very minimally, but he diverts it in a different direction. Veltman, we'll get into the intention and stuff like this afterwards, but he comes in, completely takes out Rice's leg. I think everyone watching it thought the ref was coming over to give a yellow or a red or something to Veltman, but no. Chris Kavanagh comes over, gives the second yellow to Declan Rice for obstruction, and you're down to 10 men. And the game changes a lot. I think Brighton come into it way more. They build confidence. You see it. João Pedro scores the equaliser. Raya makes a good save, and then I'm going to put it more on Gabriel, but I guess both the centre backs were there and they didn't quite react quick enough to come in and stop João Pedro coming and tucking away the rebound. And then weirdly, Arteta goes to a back five at some point, and kind of makes it clear he's kind of looking for the draw. But then still, you guys have the best chances. Havertz should score. He does really well, actually. It's a bit of a solo chance. He creates it himself, but doesn't have the finish to slot pass for Bruggen. And then Saka also spawns a bit of a chance, I think, off the rebound to score the winner as well. And it ends 1-1. So much controversy. Prime Arteta comes out after the game in his Disgracia bag, sounding off on the referee. A lot of Arsenal content creators obviously getting the violins out about the decision, Declan Rice, because obviously now Rice is going to miss the North London derby now. This is not just like bloody Ipswich away or something that you guys Southampton away you're missing. He's missing the NLD when we come back from the international break. What did you make of the game, mate? We'll get into the big incidents in a minute, but what did you make of the game overall? Do you think it was a fair result? And are you still... Because I was with a few Arsenal fans. Some of them were really disappointed with the draw, and some of them were quite happy that you got out of it with a draw, even though you had the big chances. What's your take?
It's a difficult question to answer. I think if the decision doesn't happen, then I'm not happy with the draw. I think we win that game 2-0, 3-0. I think we would definitely, Brighton had some chances, of course, and it wasn't like a complete drubbing, like we weren't dominating them or anything else like that. But I think we were comfortably on the way to winning that game. And until the decision, after that decision, we were, in my opinion, comfortably on the way to losing the game. Despite having those chances, I'm going to be honest with you, mate, they were very much counter-attack on the break chances that really Brighton will be unhappy about, because Brighton obviously were going for it, right? Like the only reason we really got those chances is because they were going for it, and we was just like smashing it up the pitch and trying to get Havertz to hold one down, right? And Havertz did really well. Like there's one,
he did
the touches that he had, like some of the stuff that he did was amazing, and he was really good in that kind of format of how he wanted to play. But that doesn't happen if Brighton aren't really trying to punish us. And they're only trying to punish us because we're a man down and we look shaky and we don't have as much of the ball. So overall, I'm unhappy with it. In the grand scheme of the race, I'm unhappy with the draw because we need to win those games. Right? If it's drawing against Liverpool or Man City, fine. But it's Brighton at home. We need to beat them if we want to be the winners of this league. And it's the third game of the season. We've got about to have two really difficult games. We've got a run of fixtures that are really, really difficult to the point where I'm not even trying to put any Arsenal players in my FPL team, right? And now we've got to do this with the Brighton team, with Brighton, which is, it's not an easy fixture by any means, but it's definitely not the hardest fixture we've got. We need to be winning that. So I'm not happy with the draw, but I understand why people would be happy after what happened, right? After Rice getting sent off. Fair enough, they go and score, and then it's real shaky from there. And then you kind of put the ball in Brighton's court to go and win the game. So I can understand why they're happy with the draw, but overall, I don't see how you can be happy about this because we've lost two very, very crucial points here in one of our, I guess, mid to easy fixtures that we probably should be winning if we want to be a title winning team. So yeah, no, I don't really know what else to say. I mean, if you want to get into the decision itself, I can go off for another 25, 30 minutes.
Yeah, that's literally going to be the next question. The thing I will say, I understand the Arsenal fans' disappointment, like your disappointment in this, because, well, I know you said mid to easy, and you probably went on the harsher side of that. Brighton fall for me in a category similar to Villa, similar to West Ham, where you've dropped points in years gone by, and they've proven to be crucial. Like Brighton have come to the Emirates and won before, for example, right? Like Villa did last season, Brighton did, I think, the season before, which lost you the league. So these are that they're in that mid block, but they're at the top part of the mid block, where it's proven that Arsenal will have fumbled. That there's been difficulty in them. And for me, that's the one where if you're going to win the league, that block of fixtures is the one where you basically have to be flawless. Because those generally are the block where Man City are flawless. Or they really minimize their drop points in there. And for you to enter that first kind of game, I guess Villa away was the first game, but you passed that test and then so quickly to come into this game and hope to see, a continuation of that and to struggle is super disappointing. But all right, let's get into it then.
Also, bear in mind, right, that when I say that about Brighton, I'm not saying that they're a bad team. I think they definitely are a bit of a banana peel for a lot of teams. But I'm looking back at the results now. We haven't lost to them in the last two seasons, right? Like last season we beat them 3-0 and 2-0, right? Yeah. The season before that we lost to them 3-0 actually. We also beat them 4-2. And I mean, our head-to-head record against them is not poor. And I think at least in the last few games, let's say the last 4 games, we've got 3 comfortable victories against them, right? So I think generally speaking, that's why I put them in that category, because what I'm looking at is season to season, are we improving or getting worse, right? And last season versus the season before it, we were poor against the big teams. Like generally speaking, in my mind, we didn't do well enough against the Man Uniteds, the Man Cities, the Liverpools of the league in order for us to really justify saying we deserve to go and win the league, right? But last season you saw a massive improvement in that area, right? Our top 4 record was really, really good, right? So I'm looking at that and thinking, okay, that's where we're getting better. When I look at this season versus last season, I look, okay, the banana peel teams like Villa, etc., are the ones that are gonna trip us up. And then some squad depth issues, some issues here and there are where we're going to slip up to the teams like West Ham or whoever else, right? This season versus last season, I'm expecting us to do as well, if not better, than we did against these teams. So that's why I say that about Brighton. We should be going and beating them again, especially at home. So the fact that we've gone and now drawn that, and I know it's not a loss or anything, but we've drawn that game, I'm thinking to myself, okay, that means that we need to pick up on last season where we did badly. So we need to go and beat Liverpool, or we need to go and beat City at their ground. We need to go and do something extra over the line now to try and get ahead of City. Because let's be honest, if we finish with the same number of points as we did last season, we'll probably come second again. Because Man City are an absolute juggernaut. So I'm looking at points tallies and thinking, how are we going to get more points than we did last season? and it's not going to be through dropping points to Brighton at home.
Yeah, no, I get it, but I mean that's a glass half full, half empty approach, right? Because you obviously had that Villa game last week, and you're 3 points up on that result last season because you lost that game and you won that this season.
Yeah, but now it kind of feels like, we've taken a step back. We just did something to get us ahead of it, and now we've gone back and pushed it back anyway. So it's like I can have 1 week of happiness where I think, oh, we're going to be better than we were last season, and then Chris Kavanagh decides to pull his yellow versus red cards out and screw us over. Stupid.
You're 1 point up on last season now with this draw. Because you obviously you beat Brighton last season, you got a draw this season, so you're still 1 point up. But I get it. You're seeing steps forward, and then almost immediately the next week you've got a blow. But let's get into the big decision then. Declan Rice, second yellow card. He's going to miss the North London derby. I haven't watched that segment on Sky Sports when they get Dermot Gallagher on to do ref watch, and he basically comes out and pom-poms, cheerleads for all the referees. I don't think we've had the first version of Howard Webb and Michael Owen's Borth snooze fest on the Premier League channel where they talk through the decisions. But I'm gonna guess that this one will be included in that batch when they do. A lot of very strong emotions from a lot of Arsenal fans, a lot of obvious cries of this only happens against the Arsenal type stuff happening. It's a very contentious decision. That's for sure. I've heard some people out here saying the ball's rolling, so it doesn't matter anyway. I'm hearing some people say that, the consistency's not there in the same match, let alone, all the different referees, considering Chris Kavanagh chose not to give. I think there were 2 different incidents in the first half where a Brighton player kicked the ball away and Arteta was losing his mind because the ref didn't give yellow cards for them. I think the João Pedro kick is the blatant one that everyone's talking about, but there was another one as well. So there's lack of consistency there. And there's some people out there just saying they don't think Declan Rice actually did obstruct the play and meaningfully touch the ball in a way that you think deserves a yellow card. I can tell from your face and you shaking your head and reactions and your outburst just now that you're not too happy with it. But what's your honest take on it, Johns? Do you think, because some people are out there saying that's the letter of the law, you've got to do it. Like, where do you stand on this?
There's two things I want to say first of all that are unrelated to it. Number one is Arsenal fans that are coming out and saying this only happens to us and doesn't happen to anybody else. You're full of rubbish, right? It happens to everybody, unfortunately. But the issue is that people use that as like, oh, because it happens to everyone, let's not complain about it. You have no right to complain. Letter of the law, it's his fault, right? You know that the referee's going to do this. So you shouldn't even give them the opportunity to, as if football isn't the most subjective game in terms of refereeing in the absolute world, right? Even with something as black and white as you think an offside would be or a handball would be, we've made it the most complicated subject that is so subjective depending on who you are. So don't tell me about this letter of the law, don't give him an opportunity, because you could literally run straight past the referee and accidentally bump his shoulder and get sent off for absolutely no reason. And then you'll say, oh, but that's just because they're referees. So what should we do? Should we all just walk off the pitch or just stand on the sidelines and just wait and just do nothing so that the referee can't punish us for it? It's the stupidest argument I've heard about this, right? And I get the football fandom argument says to you, you shouldn't support any other team, even if, they're being screwed by the same thing that you get screwed by. But it's the stupidest argument I've seen because let's be honest, we've all complained. Every fan of every team has complained at some point in the last 2-3 years about refereeing in the Premier League and the standard of it, right? So those are the two first things I want to say, right? It doesn't just happen to us, but at the same time, fans that are basically calling for us to not complain about it and that it's not a bad decision are lying through their teeth just because of the football fandom and the fact that they don't support Arsenal and they support somebody else, right? Because when it happens to them, they cry the same way and they want support from all of us. So what I'm trying to say is, if you want support from all of us when you get screwed, how about you show some support for us when we get screwed? Because at the end of the day, it's just bringing down the standard of the Premier League, right? And it's causing all of us headache, right? And it's contributing to being, I guess, let's say, the reason or the main reason why this league shouldn't possibly be considered to be the best league in the world, right? The standard of refereeing really is up there with bloody Sunday league football. It's nowhere near where it should be in terms of the amount of money that is spent and the amount of people that are watching this game. So those are the first two things. Anyway, now in terms of the fact that is it a yellow card or not, blah 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 blah. Anything can be a yellow card if you want it to be on the right given circumstance in the right game with the right referee there. So I'm not going to say, is it a yellow card or not? Because it could be, sure. Right? It also couldn't be. There are many games where the exact same thing has not been punished. So I don't want to hear all of this, but that it says in the law that you can't do that, right? Yeah, exactly. The same game in this case. I don't want to hear any of that like, it says in the law book that this is how you can do it. This is not what you're allowed to do. Because all of those are subjective rules anyway, right? It also says that you should use some common sense. Also a very subjective thing to do. And a lot of referees apparently don't follow it. So I don't want to talk about that. But from my point of view, consistency is the biggest issue, okay? If João Pedro doesn't get it, if he doesn't get a yellow card for it, I can't remember who the other person is. It might have actually been Veltman or somebody similar that doesn't get a yellow card for the exact same thing in the first half, then you need to keep that consistency through to the end of the game. Whether or not that's the right way to implement the rule or not does not matter, because you need to decide at the beginning of the game or at the end of the game what you're going to be doing from this point on. You can't decide in the middle of the game. It's the same way we complain about yellow cards, right? A yellow card for a challenge in the first 5 minutes. They almost never want to give them, right? You could go and clatter the life out of someone and they're not going to give you a yellow card because it's the first 5 minutes and they don't want to ruin the game. But in the 55th minute, it's suddenly a yellow card now, right? It's the same BS double standard where you can, on a corner, you can literally spear tackle somebody and not get a yellow card, not get a penalty for it. But anywhere else on the pitch, it's a yellow card and you get sent off or whatever else for it. It's the same inconsistency we see among all of the rules and the implementation of the of football in the Premier League, and it absolutely stinks to the high heavens. So that's the first biggest issue I have with it, right? Consistency. Second of all is common sense, just generally common sense about this decision to make, right? If you have set a precedent to say, I'm going to give all of you yellow cards for this, then you have basically relieved yourself of duties in terms of common sense, because you've said to everybody, it doesn't matter. I've put my foot down. This is what we're going to do. If you decide to go against it, it's you that lacks common sense, not me, because I've laid down the law to you and I've told you, you can't do that, right? And I'm the referee. It's on me. Then fair enough, common sense would lie with Rice and he shouldn't be doing it. But if you've blatantly shown everybody that this is okay in the game, and then you decide at one point in the game, in a very, kind of innocuous challenge that really doesn't make any difference to the game, you decide then to change your rule and give somebody a yellow card, then you can't say to Rice, you're the one that lacks common sense. You can say to the referee, where's your common sense? The fact that you can't remember 5 minutes ago you didn't give a yellow card for that same offence. So that's the biggest, the second biggest issue I have with this. Consistency and common sense. They've ruined the game. You've now basically said to yourself, one team is just going to go on the attack for the last 35 minutes, right? This game is not really going to be all that competitive anymore. I know Arsenal had a couple of chances here and there, but it's not going to be very competitive. It's just going to be basically watching Man City play against Ipswich. It's going to be one team has all the possession and one team just gets 11 men behind the ball, or 10 men in this case behind the ball, and just, that's going to be the rest of the game. So you've ruined the spectacle of the game as well, right? We didn't come here to watch you, Chris Kavanagh, from Greater Manchester, grew up in a notoriously Man City fandom place. We didn't come to watch you, you silly twat. We came to watch the football. And I guarantee you, if you didn't give a yellow card for that, none of the Brighton players or fans would be all that arguing about it, right? Because you didn't give it to João Pedro and you didn't give it to Veltman in the first half, right? You didn't give a red card to Veltman for booting the life out of Declan Rice. If you watch that from 5 different angles, the ball is literally a yard away from him when he kicks Declan Rice. So if we're going to use common sense or delaying the game, booting somebody onto the floor and then getting them sent off delays the game way more than him knocking the ball half a yard away from you. So you're wasting your own time, and then you're going to come and complain and say that we wasted time. Because you've just literally leg sweeped him, kick the leg, Johnny, like this is fucking Karate Kid. and that's not wasting time. So it's an all-round a stinky argument, and everyone's just basically, contradicting themselves in every part of the argument that they make, right? Number one, the decision should not be made based off of the status or the situation of what had happened previously in that game. That's the long and short of it. Whether you're a Liverpool fan, a Newcastle fan, an Arsenal fan, whoever you are, that is not a challenge. That is not a decision that you want to see happen against your team. And you think fairly, if you were watching it in La Liga, if you were watching it in Sunday League, where you didn't support either of the teams, you would say that is not a foul. That is not a yellow card. Whatever else, that is not a red card. So just take off your stupid, bias because of who you support, and just remember that we're all getting screwed by the same people whenever we want, because we won't call them out as a group, as a league. We won't come out and say, the PGMOL, you need to sack all those refs and import a bunch of refs from Italy or from Spain or from Poland or wherever else where they've got a better standard. Because it's clear we can only produce morons when it comes to refereeing in this country.
Yeah, I mean the recent sample sizes, I think, have proven that we definitely don't have anywhere near the best referees and officials in Europe, let alone the world.
Well, I'll give you an example. Let me just give you one example, right? The only half-decent ref that we've had in the last 20 years now has been given the job of running all the referees just because of how poor the rest of them are, that they can't find somebody that was better than bog standard to be the leader of the referees. We don't have no Pierluigi Collinas out here. We've literally got, if you're not shit, you can run the whole gaff. We don't care because we don't have anybody better than you.
Yeah, I mean, that's still an improvement. That's the mad thing, because they have like Mike Riley or something, who was an absolutely poor ref before that, who was heading up the PGMOL. And you know what? I know it's a sensitive thing because I don't think they're trying necessarily to make bad calls and ruin games, but I think it's just, we just see worse and worse examples of incompetence. It feels like every season. Like, we're 3 weeks in, and this one particular ref has had he's gone back to back in the words of Drake in terms of stinkers, because he literally let Joe Linton clothesline Neto last week. Also, he was kind of screwed over by VAR with the disallowed Bournemouth goal as well, which should have stood, which they said was a handball. So yeah, he's been involved in a stinker last week, and then this weekend, it's just poor because, like you said, I think all of us, we're trying our best to get over the idea and get past the idea that, or come to terms with the idea, should I say, that consistency among all refs at all time is hard to get right. And I think we all have to try and be more understanding about that. But having consistency from the same ref in the same game, I don't think that's a lot to ask for. I'm sorry, I don't think that's a lot to ask for at all. I think that is the bare minimum, is that the referee on the day keeps it 100 with everyone and stays fair and even to both teams. And I know there's some people out here playing pedantics and saying, oh, what Declan Rice did is not exactly the same as what João Pedro or Veltman did. And so therefore the ref didn't have anything in terms of consistency to follow and whatever. But I'm sorry, I bunch up all of those type of little incidents, obstruction, dissent, all these different types of things into the same bucket. And so if you're not harsh on them, if you're being lenient on them, you need to be lenient on them throughout the game to both teams. And so I don't really care about this pedantic FC stuff that people are doing. And again, I think you're right. It's really just masking the fact that people are just being tribal, and they're just saying hold that because we've had this and now you're going through it and we all have to suffer together, and they're enjoying drinking Arsenal tears. That, I think that's basically all you can say about the situation, because the ref, he's had a stinker, and he's and I do think there are people out there that are enabling this type of thing. Like I think opposition managers, for example, I think Hertzler came in and backed the decision, and some Brighton players came out and backed the decision. Now, I don't think that helps the scenario at all, because now you've made it completely a subjective. Um, it's not subjective anymore. Like it's just become a huge discussion point, and you're not helping further and eradicate these type of situations. You're actually adding fuel to the fire, because now Chris Kavanagh's going to walk out there in the next game, and he may not have reflected on his performance, and he may not have taken the steps to try and improve that he needs to be a ref of the quality to be in the Premier League. And that's another issue. It's not even like chastising people, but it's just saying and giving him the feedback from both sides. Because if the winning team doesn't say anything and it's just a losing team, there's always going to be that, oh, sore loser tag. That's the reason why we should just ignore it. That's what, they do. Whereas I feel like this is just not a good, it's not a good example for people to see of the Premier League.
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't agree with you more. And I think the biggest thing that I see is with teams, there's two different paths you can take, right? There's the path of, it's very clear that these guys are biased and that they hold grudges. Because I think it's pretty clear that as much as referees don't want to come out and say it, it's very clear that they have their favourites and their non-favourites, right? They have their players that they consider to be foulers and who get far more yellow cards than anybody else in the league, despite not really doing anything different from other players, right? It's very clear that they have those kind of favourites, and it's also very clear in terms of their favourites in teams and their favourites in managers. And I'm not saying that to say that Arsenal are the least favourite and that's why we get all these bad decisions. No, that's definitely not the case. But what I'm saying to you is, in general, it's clear that the league has its favourites as to who they let get away with things and who they don't, right? And in my opinion, it's more everybody they don't let get away with certain things, and then two teams they do let them get away with them, right? Newcastle, Man City, well, I would say were the biggest examples of that, right? Newcastle get away with so many more fouls, red cards that should, or no red card that should have been a red card. Man City have got away with so many things in terms of Rodri and a lot of their play as well that they get away with it and nobody gets punished for. And my point is, the Hertzler thing doesn't surprise me, because what he's going to think to himself is, if I come out and crucify him, he's going to come back and get me later on in the season, or one of his mates is going to come back and get me later on in the season, right? And it's very clear from all these referee shows that you see after the game that they're all pally with each other. You can't be honest, because if you could be honest, Dermot Gallagher would come out and say, you know what, he's my mate, but he was wrong, because he would know that there's no backlash against him. But I guarantee you, if he comes out and says that, he's got connections with the referees still. Right? They affect his livelihood in some sort of way. He's not going to come out and say that. And it's the same thing with Fabian Hertzler. He's under duress. For him to come out and say, that's a totally fine decision and I'm happy with it, of course he's going to say that. It's like they've got his wife and kids in a room somewhere saying, you know what, you better say that. Otherwise, you're never going to see these lot again. And unfortunately, that's kind of how they are. They're like a cabal, like a cartel that just runs the league. No one can say anything bad about them unless you get sued, or they come out and try and ban you or give you an extended ban or do whatever else. They make you stand up in the stands for all of the rest of the season, right? It's very clear, right? They're not an independent body from the Premier League. They get to come out and do whatever they want, and they've clearly got influence, right? So I don't blame Hertzler for that, because he's just trying to protect his team in the future from getting screwed over by the same rubbish that they're doing to us, right? But really, if we want to change anything, everybody has to come out and say, you know what, this is not good enough. Whether it's for my team or against my team, it doesn't matter, because I know you're going to screw me at some point else, some point in the future as well. It could lose me my job. It could mean the team gets relegated. It could mean whatever else, right? So the only time that anything is going to change is when we all band together and say, you know what, enough is enough. This is not on. And I don't think we're ever going to do that because of the fact that the Premier League is so tribal. But I just wanted to say that because I don't blame Hertzler for his comments or whatever else, because I can understand why he's going to do that, right? And that's why Arteta comes out and he's going to say, you know what, this is absolutely disgraceful, and he's going to have to put it on his back. And I'm sure he'll get sued again for it or whatever else, and he's going to have to go and get those lawyers back from last year and say that, no, I didn't say disgracia, or no, I didn't say disgraceful, I said something else, right? I was speaking German at the time. I didn't say anything, right? But yeah, I mean, we're going to need more support from all of the from all of the managers who've been screwed by referees. We're going to need support from the players. You know, Rice has come out and said, "Oh, yeah, it's a yellow card." No, man, stop being so noble. It was not a yellow card, and you should have been sent off. Now you're banned for the bloody North London derby. It's your first red card of his entire career, or in the Premier League. Can you believe that? As a defensive midfielder, it's his first red card ever. And it was given for that. That, honestly, that's a disgrace.
Cool.
That also stinks as well, by the way.
Yeah. I hear you, bro. I understand that it's frustrating. And you talk about under duress. Declan Rice is definitely, his family were definitely tied up when he was asked those questions because he was livid. In real time, he was absolutely livid. Someone's come to him and said they've got your girlfriend and your firstborn tied up. Just say you deserved it, because there's no way he believed that. He was going off on one. So I hear you. It was poor, man. I do think, of course, some people can be harsh and say, obviously, Declan Rice didn't need to do the flick out, or whatever, but I think that's extremely harsh on him, because you see how the game's going, you see how it's reffing, and then you take actions off the back of that. Of course, maybe that's a bit naive. Maybe the worst you could criticize him and say it was a bit naive, because he actually gave the referees more credit than they deserve when it comes to their competence and their consistency and their trustworthiness. And he shouldn't have, because I'll be honest with you, there's not a huge amount of evidence to prove that that's actually something that's a strong judgment call to make. But other than that, I think you've got to look at the referees. You've got to look at that group as well. The linesmen made a couple of shocking calls where they gave goal kicks when it should have been corners and stuff like that. So I think they overall had a poor performance. Chris Kavanagh might need to sit it out and go to the Vanarama for a couple of weeks to the Gulag to try and repent for 2 weeks of poor performance.